Hi, I'm BJ Stagner, the pastor of Calvary Baptist Church of the Cunningham Valley, as well as Calvary Baptist Church of Cardiff. I want to personally thank you for joining us today in this week's edition of Calvary's Corner, our weekly informal Bible study where we cover essential topics for the church member as well as the minister. We also include hot topics. We include controversial series that we are going to be discussing in this weekly Bible study. It is released at 9 a.m. on Tuesday morning, so make sure you like and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Follow us on Sermon Audio, if you will, and join in each Tuesday at 9 a.m. for our next subject. Thank you so much and enjoy our time together. All right. Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us here today again for our Calvary's Corner. We are getting back into our general topics again, biblical living, everyday life. We're looking at lesson 18 today, and we're going to be speaking about integrity in a compromising world. This is the strength of an undivided life, living a life according to integrity. Now, before we get started, just to let you know, we're going to come out of Proverbs chapter 11 and verse 3 here in just a moment. But before we get started, I want to give a little bit of a disclaimer. It is abnormally hot here in the United Kingdom, here specifically in Wales today. And so we may have, our church here is located right here in the middle of the village. And so the main street is right outside of here. We have every window in the building open. I got a fan above me running, and it's still hot. So it's roughly about 36 degrees Celsius. You can do that math if you're keen to Fahrenheit. But let me go ahead and tell you, it's hot, especially hot for us. And so again, there may be some background noise. I apologize on the onset for that because of it, but there's nothing we can really do about it because it would be unbearable. It's unbearable right now to many of us here. We have no air con in this country, so at least the majority of the places. I guess some of the stores do, but this church doesn't, and our house does not. And so anyway, let's get into our study today, and we'll sweat together, and we will enjoy it. It'll be a wonderful blessing. Now, by the time you're watching this, there's probably a good chance that we're already rainy and cold, but nonetheless, we can remember the heat during lesson 18, integrity in a compromising world. So Proverbs chapter 11, verse 3 says, "The integrity of the upright shall guide them, but the perverseness of transgressors shall destroy them." And so what we find in the world today, why teach a lesson, why bring something up like this? There's a collapse of integrity in our world today. Integrity is diminishing while appearance is increasing. I believe social media has driven this. Modern systems have a reward image, a perception, performance, all of these things. Integrity is internal, and it's often unseen. And as a result of that, it can often be neglected. So Proverbs chapter 11, verse 3 establishes two paths for us. Number one, it shows us that integrity guides. And number two, it shows that perversiveness destroys. So you see the contrasting element of perversion as well as integrity. And there is no neutral outcome. It's one or the other. You don't have both at the same time. You can't, it's not splitting the difference. You either have one or you have the other. And you're either going down one path or the other as well. So integrity is not defined by your public behavior alone. Integrity is defined as the internal consistency of one's life, the alignment between belief, speech, and action. Absence of integrity is fragmentation. All right, so modern patterns show this. They reveal this, a public persona that's different from a private conduct. When you show statements without a corresponding action, big talk, little do's. Principle adjusted for convenience. They'll take a stand on something, but as soon as it kind of comes through the back door and hits at home, all of a sudden their standards and their stand changes. And we find that in the church quite often. This produces instability, and it produces instability in the Christian's life. It produces instability in the Christian's walk, instability in the family, the home. But as a result, it's instability in the world, in society, in the culture, in the villages, towns, cities, and all that. And I say that because I always believe, so goes the church, so goes the country. Our nation is only going to be as strong as the church is. Our church is going to be as strong as the families, and our families are going to be as strong as they take on standing upon the Word of God. Everything rises and falls on the preserved, purified Word of God. So let's look real quickly, if we can, at the definition of integrity, if we can define that, this internal alignment, if you will. Again, we go back to Proverbs 11 and verse 3, saying that the integrity of the upright, that's the reference. So integrity refers to it as wholeness. It's an undivided condition. It's consistency between belief and behavior. It's alignment between private and public life and stability across all environments. The nature of integrity is not situational, it's actually structural. A man with integrity does not adjust based on whether it's an audience or pressure or opportunity, a situation or situation awareness or anything along that line. Integrity is what it is. It's that straight line that a person walks despite what is going on around them or even in the midst of their life. Psalm 15 and verse 2 tells us, he that walketh uprightly and worketh righteousness and speaketh the truth in his heart. Truth exists internally long before it's expressed externally. So the exposure of integrity matters in our life. Integrity is revealed a lot of times in a person's life. Integrity is interesting because it's not something that a person wears as a banner. There's not a banner across their chest saying that I have integrity, or integrity lives here. It's not that. It's revealed. It's revealed in really and truly in unobserved moments, private decisions, and really and truly in unenforced choices. Things that are made, changes and choices that a person does make is made with integrity, and it's made in a different way than things that would be made from perverseness, if you will, which is the contrasting element. Luke 16:10 says that he that is faithful in that which is least. This verse right here has been kind of a secondary life verse of mine, more like a secondary life drive verse, meaning, that if you're faithful in that which is little, you're going to be faithful in that which is much. If you'll be driven in the small things, you'll be driven in the small days, the slow days. If your focus can remain true and square and with integrity in those days of when the numbers are low, you'll do the same when the numbers are large. Integrity is often equated to reputation, but that's a misconception. Reputation is what other people perceive. Your reputation is based upon what people perceive about you, not always what you really are. And people can look at you through a different lens. Quite oftentimes we find that there are certain people who will look at other men, be it in the ministry and profession and sport, and they'll look at them through a different lens. They'll look at them that either they don't line up with their principles of truth, or they don't reach their level of their particular standards. Not that their standards are higher or better for that matter. It's just theirs. They don't do things a certain way they do, or they've stepped away from tradition and things like that. And so you'll find weak-minded individuals then will begin to have a misconception of what integrity is, and they'll have a perception of that person, and it is incorrect. And, a lot of times it's downright sinful, especially if that particular person acts upon it and, sows discord or begins to cause division. That reveals their weakness, and really and truly actually reveals their perverseness, because you see now they are not a man of integrity. So integrity is what God sees, all right? And let's face it, God sees everything. 1 Samuel 16:7 says, man looketh on the outward appearance, but the Lord looketh on the heart. So in today's world, both in secular as well as spiritual, even in the church world today, there's what's known as an image management. And modern systems today, they emphasize like a personal branding, a public perception, a curated identity. You become somebody you're really not on the forefront, on the social media, on what people see, but not what people know. What it produces a controlled visibility, a selective presentation, a hidden inconsistencies. I remember many years ago, I was at a church one time, and they were having a meeting. There were some big name preachers that had come in for this conference. It was a great conference. It was during the week, and I'd popped up to one or two of the day services. But every individual, every young man from that church, they dress the same, walk the same, talk the same, act the same. And then when one of the young men shook my hand, introduced himself, very polite, but he had this signature tilt of the head, raise of the eyebrow, and a certain question. And another guy that I shook hands with from that particular location, from that church, one of their preachers, one of their young men, same thing. Same tilt, same raise of the eyebrow, same question, same introduction. And, that is a controlled, visible movement. That is a hidden, what that becomes is a selective presentation. It's a controlled visibility. It is robotic is what it is. It's insincere. I'm not saying those young men lacked integrity. I'm not saying that at all. But what I am saying is they were following the pattern that someone else had given them, and therefore they was not creating their own. If they're not creating their own, many times they're going to lose integrity because they're looking at what is visible in someone else's life and their pattern in their life after that. So there's not an internal integrity that is developed, and that's a problem. Job's integrity is a great illustration here. Job 27:5 says, "Till I die, I will not remove my integrity from me." Integrity was maintained under pressure, and if there's any greater example of maintaining integrity, Job is the perfect example. Job is the example we go to. Job is the example that we see who passed the test of time. He passed the test of circumstances and situation and maintained his integrity. So that's the definition of integrity. Let's look at the function of integrity. Let's look at the action of it. Integrity is built in there for guidance. Again, if you go back to Proverbs 11, verse 3, "It shall guide me," it says. All right, so "it shall guide me" is the next phase there. Integrity directs our decision making. It has a distinct role in decisions. Integrity provides clarity, stability, consistency, and I think that's one of the biggest words you hear me in many a times in this series. These general topics for everyday life, for the Christian, for biblical living, for everyday life. I've hit the word consistency probably in just about every one of the lessons, and I don't know if that's just as a result of working on these, across the board around the same time. But I honestly believe in all of my heart. I believe that consistency is the key to our life. It is the key to Christian living. It's the key to where we are. It's the key to how we should live our life and what we should be doing. And because anything else is going to fall short, is it not? It eliminates internal conflict when you're consistent in what you know to do next and what you should do. A man with integrity doesn't need to recalculate based on circumstance or adjust principles for advantage. There's no confusion there. A man with integrity will understand that his direction is fixed. He knows where he's going. It's an internal compass, if you will. Integrity functions, again, as a guide. It's aligning our choices with truth, and it's preventing the deviation. Proverbs 4, verses 25 and 26, we find inside that verse, it says, "Let thine eyes look right on." And then later on, it says, "Ponder the path." Integrity stabilizes our direction and keeps us from being moved to and fro with every whim of doctrine, and there's different things that come into our days every single day. Integrity will stabilize that course. Modern individuals often today change positions quite heavily. They adjust standards. They follow trends. I remember many years ago, and I won't go into detail for a particular reason, I had an individual, a close friend of mine, who jumped on the bandwagon, T-shirt bandwagon, jumped on the bandwagon of a trend of something that they're embarrassed of now. But they jumped on it because, it was the popular thing to do at that particular moment. I gave warning that if you don't do this every year, you're going to become a target. And that's exactly what happened. And, you got to be consistent, steady in your decision. But the decision made with integrity. This was a decision that wasn't made with integrity. It was actually made with trend. It was made with weakness is actually what it was. So, and this ends up producing like just an inconsistent outcomes. And integrity removes fluctuations. If you look at Daniel's life, Daniel was a perfect life when you look at what integrity shows in his days, and what was going on and how he lived his life. Daniel's life was purpose. Daniel 1:8 says Daniel purposed in his heart. Decisions was made before the pressure. Integrity determines action before the circumstances. So, but again, we get back in our verse in Proverbs 11, verse 3, and we see the contrast. Remember the destruction of perverseness. Perverseness is the Bible says here, but the perverseness of transgressors shall destroy them. Perversiveness refers to distortion, if you will, to deviate from the truth. To pervert something means to malalignment, to bend something, if you will. And so the nature of perversiveness involves twisting the truth, justifying wrongs, or adjusting standards. The path of destruction, guys, it leads to compromise, deception, collapse, and destruction is not immediate. It's always progressive. And the instability of compromise, guys, comes into a person's life. So without integrity, decisions are changed, standards shift, direction weakens, all of these things. There's an internal conflict that occurs. Compromise creates an internal tension, and a divided man cannot maintain stability. James 1:8 says a double-minded man is unstable in all his ways. And the modern culture redefines truth. They adjust morality. They promote flexibility within standards. And all of this is a widespread instability. It creates unstable lives, something that integrity is far from. You look at King Saul's failure, 1 Samuel 15. I have sinned, for I have transgressed. Why? Because I feared the people. God gave him a job to do. He failed to do that job because he feared the people. He adjusted his obedience for approval of the people. And that's a result of a lack of integrity. That's compromise. Compromise produces rejection. So let's look at the testing of integrity real quick here. We're nearly done, nearly finished with this. But pressure and opportunity come into play. So when integrity is not proven in ease, we must understand that it's proven under pressure. Pressure reveals our true priorities, our actual beliefs, our internal structure. We see that in Genesis 39 and verse 9. Joseph refused to sin while it's under pressure. Integrity remained intact. But then there's the test of opportunity. Opportunity exposes integrity. When advantage can be gained through compromise, integrity is tested. It's tested in the absence of supervision. Integrity operates without external enforcement. It's maintained when unseen. It's maintained when unaccountable to others, being unaccountable to other folk. Opportunity often, we find that opportunity for hidden compromise. Modern systems allow for private behavior without a detection, anonymous action, if you will, reduced accountability. That increase of opportunity in a person's life increases the potentiality of compromise, which again reveals the lack or the failure of integrity. We see it in David's life, 2 Samuel 11:2. David acted without immediate consequence. That was his failure. Opportunity without integrity produced sin, and it caused failure in his life and then the consequences down the road. So what is the development of integrity? How can we take on board today what we've heard and build upon it? It's a deliberate construction, if you will. Integrity does not occur naturally. It's not something that someone's born with. It's something that must be developed. It's the role of truth in the believer's life. Psalm 119 verse 11 says, "Thy word have I hid in mine heart, that I might not sin against God." Truth forms an internal structure. Integrity is built through repeated alignment, over and over and over. Small, consistent decisions create a stable character in a person's life. And accountability reinforces integrity. That's the disciplined nature of accountability. To bring integrity, it reinforces that integrity. Romans 14:12 says, "Every one of us shall give an account." So awareness of accountability strengthens our behavior, thus strengthening integrity. Compromise must be identified and must be rejected immediately. Today, because delayed correction weakens integrity. In today's world, there's a lack of internal structure. Modern individuals often rely on external controls, lack of internal conviction. They have an adjusted base of environment. Integrity requires internal structure, so that you have to have it on the inside, something that's developed internally. Samuel demonstrated, again, consistent integrity in his life. 1 Samuel 12:3 says, "Whose ox have I taken, or whose ass have I taken?" His life was verifiable. So what is the outcome of integrity? What would be the outcome, the results, the consequences, the reward? Well, stability and trust. It's that simple, stability and trust. Proverbs 10 verse 9 says, "He that walketh uprightly walketh surely." Integrity produces security. A man of integrity does not fear exposure or maintains consistency and operates without internal conflict. And the trust and what trust does it produce? Guys, integrity builds credibility. It builds reliability and influence. It's, the absence of fear. There's no need to conceal or to adjust. Truth remains constant in your life. Modern environments show that there's a reduced trust in society today. Why? Because there's a lack of integrity. Increased verifications are needed. Why? Because there's a lack of integrity. There's an increased skepticism in our world today. Why? Well, because of a lack of integrity. Integrity restores trust. It restores all that. Joseph was entrusted with authority. Genesis 41:40, thou shalt be over my house, it said. Integrity produced responsibility. And so, we bring this to a conclusion today. And speaking about integrity, there's a necessity for an undivided life with integrity. You don't have to be divided. You don't have to live one life here and another life there. You don't need to say something here and do something there. Proverbs 11:3 establishes the structure that each and every one of us need in common everyday living. Integrity defines the internal alignment. It guides decisions. Perverseness produces destruction. Integrity is tested under pressure. Integrity must be developed, as we've already mentioned. Integrity produces stability and trust in society, in the home, in the church, in the workplace. But integrity is not optional. For a Christian today, integrity is not optional. For without integrity, direction collapses. But with integrity, life remains stable, regardless of circumstances or situations in existence. Guys, I hope this was a blessing to you. Do hope and pray you have a wonderful and blessed day. Thank you so much for joining us, and we'll see you next time for our next installment of our general topics. Get into lesson number 19, responding to trials biblically. God bless you all.